The following are true scary stories, found on the subreddit Let's Not Meet. I'll have a link in the description for each of the stories if you would like to read along with us. I'd like to give a big shout out to Lazy Masquerade for your help in this collaboration. I was honored when you chose to work with me, and now the day's finally here, and I know a lot of my subscribers have been waiting for it. And all of you who aren't subscribed to Lazy Masquerade, you need to do yourself a favor and head over to his channel and become the newest member of the Lazy Legion. And without any further ado, let's begin. I am a female, and this incident happened when I was in college, when I was 20. I lived in a big city where I went to school, but I still used my car more than public transportation since I needed to transport a lot of materials back and forth from my apartment to campus. I'm a sculpture major. One weeknight, I had been working late in the studio and decided to stop at the 24-hour drugstore chain on my drive home to pick up a few things. It was pretty late, probably about 2 a.m., so there weren't any customers in the store, but there were 2 male cashiers around my age. After I had been in there about 3 minutes, a new customer entered the store. He was male, late 30s, kinda jittery looking. He noticed me and started following me around the store in a really obvious way. I was trying to ignore him, get my stuff, and get out of there. He came up to me and started doing this psst noise, like he was trying to discreetly get my attention. I kept ignoring him. Then he said, "Fuck you, bitch," and left the store. I figured, whatever, weirdo. As I paid for my stuff, I had this overwhelming gut feeling to ask the cashier if he wouldn't mind walking me out, as the jittery guy had just creeped me out. The cashier said it was cool, and we make our way out to the parking lot. So I'm feeling more at ease about halfway to my car, and I turn to say thanks to the cashier for his help, when he grabs my shoulder and says, "That guy is under your car." Sure enough, that fucking jittery guy was under my car. The cashier shouts, "What the fuck are you doing? I'm calling the police." The jittery guy starts scrambling out from under my car, and the cashier guy and I run back into the store, and he immediately calls the cops. It scared me pretty good. Unfortunately, the guy ran away before the cops got there. I sometimes wonder what he would have done if I hadn't asked the cashier to walk me out. Grabbed my foot? Stabbed me with something? Just let me run him over? I guess I'll never know.
Let's start off by stating the need to knows. I was 17 at the time and living in Portland, Oregon, with my dad. One day, I was taking the bus to the train station so I could go and hang out with my friends in downtown Portland. I did this almost every day. It was the summertime, and I had just graduated, so I was always out and about. Most of the time, I put my headphones in and ignored the world around me. Some people comment on my bright pink hair or ask me what I'm listening to, but nothing as weird as this next guy. I'm standing there, waiting for the train, knowing it should arrive at any time. This tall, skinny blonde man walks over and stands next to me. I glance and go back to looking at the tracks, looking for the train. He starts petting my hair. I instantly move away and take my headphones out and say, "You should ask permission before touching someone." He replied with, "Well, that was rude." I just stare at him, confused and of course turned off by this man. Finally, after a long and awkward wait, the train pulled up. I waited until he got on the train first, and then I followed on so I wouldn't have to sit next to him. But he just waits there, right on the other side of the door. I'm a little annoyed at this point, and I walk all the way to the other end of the train. I noticed that he was following me. I start to get nervous. but I was sure that he wouldn't try anything, as the train car was full of various people. I sat down next to an older man, but facing out so I could still see the tall, skinny man standing there. He was just staring at me. I was kicking myself for snapping at him. I was starting to get worried he was going to follow me all the way to downtown. He did just that. When I got off, he did as well. I start looking around for my friends, hoping they're nearby, but they're not. I start walking just to get away from this creeper. As I get to the corner stoplight, he's still following me. By this point, I'm extremely nervous. I just think that if I stay near crowds of people, I'd be fine. About 3 blocks later, he finally says something to me. "What's your name?" I freeze, startled by his question. I don't tell him, but instead ask, "What's your name?" He smiles and says, "I asked you first." I tell him my name is Rochelle. It's not. In fact, that's my mum's name. I didn't want him to know my real name, and without a thought, I said my mum's name. "Mine's Elmo," he replies. I made a face like, okay, this was a waste of time. I only wanted his name so I could report him. After a long silence, I asked him, "Why are you following me?" He looked pissed at my question. This scared me. I looked around and there weren't a lot of people on this block. That made me even more scared. Then with great relief, I hear Thomas, my friend, yelling my name down the street, trying to wave me down. He came walking up and asked, "Where have you been? I've been looking for you." I smile at him, so glad that he was there now. It made me feel safe. "I was talking to Elmo," I say to Thomas, and I point at the tall, skinny man. Thomas looks him over and gives me a face. A face like, "Come on girl, you could do better." I say goodbye to Elmo and start walking away with Thomas. He didn't follow me this time. Thank God. But that's not the last time I saw him. The next time, he just sat next to me, not saying anything. This time he didn't follow me, but it made me nervous that he knew the bus stop I got off at. It was the stop, right in front of my dad's apartment building. Some time went by, and I forgot about him. Until my dad tells me, there's someone on the phone for me. "Hello?" I say. "So, your name is Amanda, not Rochelle." My blood ran cold. I knew who this was. But how did he get my house number? How did he figure out my real name? What did he want? I hang the phone up and tell my dad what happened. He seems calm and tells me not to stress too much. He wouldn't let anything happen to me. About a month later, while I was out with Thomas, my dad shows up unexpectedly and tells me that I need to go home with him. I agree, confused. When we get driving, he says, "Some man came to the house looking for you." Again, confused. I didn't see why this was a reason to act so strange. I had completely forgotten about Elmo once again. "I think it was that guy that's been bothering you," he said. "What happened?" I asked. My dad smiled and said, "I gave him a piece of my mind and told him we were going to get a restraining order. We tried, with no luck, since we didn't know his real name. But I haven't seen or heard from this guy since. It's been about a year now. I'm still nervous about him though. How did he find out about my apartment? How did he get my number? All of this over my hair? What would have happened if I got caught alone with him?"
A few weeks ago, I had to fly out to a small town I'd never been to in order to look for a place to live. I'm moving there in the fall to start grad school. My boyfriend flew with me, and before the trip, I researched all sorts of apartments on Craigslist and set up a bunch of appointments. Our first appointment was in the afternoon, in this sort of remote residential area. The landlord sounded fine over email, and asked me to call him about an hour before the appointment to confirm that I was coming. I called. He didn't answer. So my boyfriend and I started walking to the house and just hoped that he would show up. Maybe 10 minutes before the appointment, he called me. "Are you coming in?" he asked. He sounded like an older man and had this very strange, slow way of talking, but I thought it was just because he was older. "Yes, we're in front of the house now." He got extremely upset and just asked, "We?" "Oh yes, my boyfriend's with me." "You never told me you had a boyfriend. You never said that." It had never crossed my mind to tell him this information, since my boyfriend would not be coming to live with me. He was just sort of helping me look for apartments on the trip. I told the man so, and after a very long pause, he said, "I'm sorry. It's just, sometimes, people don't tell me they're married, and it surprises me. I'll see you soon." Then he hung up. I told my boyfriend about what the man had said, and he was immediately weirded out. He wanted to leave, but there were slim pickings in terms of real estate at this point, so I stupidly said that we should stay, in case this place was the place. As we were discussing it, we see a man leave the house we were going to view. This man was young and extremely sketchy looking, greasy hair, furtive eyes. He took one look at us and ran out of the house to his car and pulled away from the curb with a screech. So we're really weirded out, but this isn't enough for us to bail just yet. And as we look at each other wondering what to do, the landlord arrives. He's in his 50s, very tall and very strong looking. His eyes are completely blank and empty of warmth or emotion. He slowly walks up to us and says, "I'd shake your hands, but mine are dirty." "From what?" my boyfriend asks. "Work," is the flat reply. He asks us a lot of questions about me, completely ignoring my boyfriend. The entire time, he stares into my eyes without blinking. What am I going to school for? What other places am I considering for living? Is my boyfriend moving into this town too? I try to give answers that are as vague as possible. Meanwhile, my boyfriend asks the landlord questions of the same kind, which he refuses to answer. Then he says, apropos of nothing, "Let me show you the basement." At this point I should have noped it out of there, but I didn't. I kept thinking this was an eccentric old man from a small town, we're city folk, and that we're just feeling paranoid. My boyfriend, on the other hand, wanted out of there, but he followed us as the man led us to the back of the house, away from the street, to the sort of detached shed. He opened the door, and we saw that there were stairs leading down into utter darkness. He flipped the switch at the top of the stairs, and the light didn't come on. Normally, the response for this is, "Oh shit, the light's out," or something like that. But he just said, and slowly walked down into the darkness. Then he stood there, without moving, in the dark, and said, "Aren't you coming down?" "There's nothing to see if the light's out," says my boyfriend. The landlord just stands there for a long time, then slowly walks up the stairs and closes the basement door without saying anything. He took us into the house. Weird and increasingly creepy things ensued. The front door, the only exit to the house, locked automatically, and when my boyfriend tried to fiddle with it, the man got really upset and told him to leave it alone. He managed to get it open secretly, though. The man kept trying to box us into small rooms and, according to my boyfriend, kept reaching his hands into his pockets, only to take them away when he caught us looking. On Craigslist and in person, the man claimed that there was a grad student already living in the house, but the evidence of that seemed arranged. There were neat piles of generic textbooks on the table, but nothing else that a 20-something-year-old might read. There was a bowl of fruit on the table, but no other food in the fridge or pantry, or any utensils. There were maybe 3 t-shirts in the closet. This supposed grad student wasn't out of town, but the landlord couldn't say what school he went to, or how long he'd been renting the house. Finally, the man had showed us every single room in the house, except for one. This one he refused to open, claiming it was just an attic, and we didn't need to see anything up there. He gave us several reasons when we inquired. It was unfinished. There was furniture up there. It would smell bad. The last one I believed, because standing near the door, it smelled terrible. Finally, we made our excuses and bolted out of there. The man walked us out, pretending to go to his car to leave, and when he thought we had turned the corner, slowly sauntered back into the house. My boyfriend, fixated on the idea that there was something wrong with this guy, Googled the man that night. We found out 3 things: that he was a pillar of the community, known by many townspeople, that there was no evidence of him owning or managing a real estate company, as he claimed on Craigslist, and that he had listed his home address as the very house we had been touring, the house where the grad student lived.
This experience happened to me a year ago. I'm 16 now, and I still have nightmares about it. So, let me tell you about the layout of my house. My room is in the front of the house, whereas my parents' and brother's room are in the back part. So, my room is farther away from the other rooms. Next to my room is the laundry room. The laundry room leads to the back room, and the back room leads to the back porch outside. In the back room is a huge window that you can see out of into the back porch and yard. In my room, on the wall above my bed, is a window that leads to the back porch. I always had that window covered up with a blanket because it creeped me out. Anyways, the window is the type of window that you have to open with a handle that twists. The handle was broken, so I could never open my window, so it was always hot in my room. I had to have a fan in there all the time, or else I couldn't sleep. Now, on with the story. One night, at 12:50, getting close to 1, I was sitting on my bed against the wall with the window right next to my head. Before I go into anything, I had my 2 very protective pit bulls laying on my bed. I wasn't particularly quiet in my room because the fan in my room is pretty loud. I was on my tablet or laptop, I don't remember which one, but I remember that I was on Wattpad, reading a story that my best friend had posted on there, when out of nowhere, I hear a tap, tap, on my window, which of course startled me for the simple fact that 1, it's 1 in the morning, and 2, I know for a fact that none of my friends would ever tap on my window at this time. So, you can probably guess that I was feeling a bit nervous. Both of my dogs were looking at the window, with their ears perked and their hackles up. They weren't barking or growling, but you could tell that they had their guards up. Instead of lifting up the blanket on my window, which of course I was too scared to do anyway, I got up off my bed as quietly as possible, so if there was someone out there, they wouldn't know I was awake. Thank God that my bedroom door was open, because it creaks loudly when it's opened. I usually left my door open before I went to bed, so all the cold air in the house would flow into my room. I walked into the laundry room and opened the door and stepped into the back room as quietly as I could so that the floorboards wouldn't creak, and I peeked out of the window enough to where I wouldn't be seen. As if they could see me anyways, because it was completely dark in my back room. But anyway, what I saw almost made my heart jump out of my chest. I saw a guy standing at my bedroom window with his face completely against the glass. He was about 5'9", maybe 5'10". His clothes were torn, and he had long hair from what I could see. I have good eyesight in the dark, so I could make out faint details. I don't know how I was able to do this so calmly, but I walked back into the laundry room, shut the door, and locked it. Then I walked down the hallway into my parents' room, and I woke my dad up. I told him everything, and he was just dumbfounded. "How do you know?" he asked. When I told him that I went into the back room and checked, that's when he fully woke up and realized that I was dead serious. He got out of bed and put some clothes on. Instead of going onto the back porch through the back room, he went through my brother's room and through his door that led outside to the concrete walkway that would lead to the big driveway. He went around the back to the backyard, and of course, the guy that was at my window was leaving the way that my dad was coming, so they met head on. My dad ended up getting into a fight with this guy. At this point, my brother was already awake and was helping my dad. Mum had already called the cops who were on the way, and the dogs were freaking the fuck out, and I was shaking really badly and at the verge of tears. Finally, the cops came and arrested the guy. Supposedly, he was a homeless drug addict who raped and killed 4 14-year-old boys a month prior to my incident. I guess I was his next victim.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you can catch all of my future content. Then make sure you head over to Lazy Masquerade's channel so you can catch the other collaboration video we worked on together, as well as become part of the Lazy Legion. Once again, I'd like to give a big thank you to Lazy Masquerade for your help in this collaboration. And I want everyone to remember, it's always scarier if it's true.